World War II produced some of the most advanced weapons ever built, and some of the dumbest. I'm talking about a bat bomb that burned down its own base, a Nazi gun that bent in half, and a rocket-powered wheel that nearly killed its inventors. These are the most hilariously pathetic weapons of World War II. World War II was full of strange inventions, but few are as surreal as the Krummlauf, the infamous bent-barrel gun from Nazi Germany. At first glance, it looks like a bad cartoon prop, but this was a real weapon. The Krummlauf was a serious attempt to give German soldiers an edge on the battlefield by letting them shoot around corners. Nazi weapons designers were desperate for any advantage as the war dragged on, and almost nothing was off the table. The concept was straightforward. Take a regular rifle, add a special curved attachment to the barrel, and suddenly you've got a gun that fires at a 30-degree angle, or in some versions, a wild 90 degrees. To help the shooter aim, a mirror system sat above the barrel so you could at least see what you were shooting at. In theory, it sounds clever. In practice, it was mostly a disaster. The bend in the barrel played hell with the bullets. Most rounds would just break apart, and even the ones that stayed together lost almost all accuracy. Designers tried to solve the gas pressure problem by drilling vent holes near the start of the bend, but the fix was only partial. The stress on the metal was so much that the whole attachment would give out after just a few hundred rounds. During World War II, the U.S. military tested all kinds of wild ideas, but few get weirder than the bat bomb. The whole thing started with a dentist named Lytle Adams. He wasn't just any dentist. He knew Eleanor Roosevelt personally, and in 1942, he used that connection to get a letter through to the White House. His pitch? Attach tiny incendiary bombs to live bats, then drop the bats over enemy cities. It sounds like something out of a cartoon, but Adams took it seriously. He'd just visited Carlsbad Caverns and figured bats would do what bats do, fly into buildings and roost. The idea was simple. If you could get thousands of bats carrying small explosives to settle around rooftops, the bombs would ignite and the fires would spread everywhere at once. Adams wasn't exactly a bat fan either. In his letter, he called bats the lowest form of animal life and claimed God only put them here to play their part in freeing humanity. Roosevelt, for her part, thought it sounded strange but interesting enough to try. So, in 1943, the Army got involved. Soldiers started collecting thousands of bats from Carlsbad Caverns, carefully strapping miniature firebombs to the animals. For the first big test, they loaded the bats into containers, hauled them up in a plane, and dropped them out over a military base. The bats scattered, did exactly what Adams predicted, and roosted under the eaves and in the rafters of nearby buildings. The only problem? The test area was the Carlsbad Air Base itself. Barracks, offices, airplane hangars, even the control tower. All of them soon caught fire as the bats' charges went off. What was meant as a demo turned into a full-scale accidental blaze, proof that the concept absolutely worked, just not where anyone wanted. Back in World War II, British engineers were desperate to find new ways to break through the German defenses along the Atlantic coast. Instead of sending soldiers to risk everything planting explosives, they came up with something nobody had seen before, the Panjandrum. The concept was pretty simple. Why not build a gigantic rocket-powered wheel and let the bomb drive itself right up to the enemy? Engineer Neville Shute Norway led the project, hoping this thing would punch straight through those massive German seawalls. The design was wild, a giant drum with two wheels, each packed with rockets to make it roll down the beach. Right in the middle, you've got a 1-ton bomb, ready to blow a hole for Allied troops to storm through. Testing happened out in the open on a public beach because, well, you can't exactly keep something that size a secret. The second they fired it up, chaos followed. The rockets had a mind of their own, shooting off in random directions and throwing the Panjandrum totally off course. Officers, engineers, everyone watching had to literally dive for cover just to avoid getting taken out by their own invention. With no way to steer and no real control, the Panjandrum never stood a chance. By the end of the war, Germany was running out of just about everything: fuel, metals, even basic supplies. That's when the Nazis started rolling out all those so-called Wunderwaffen, the wonder weapons, hoping one miracle invention would turn the tide. Most of them flopped, and the wind cannon was no exception. This thing looked like it belonged in a cartoon. A 32-foot barrel built to fire a blast of heated nitrogen and oxygen, sending a vortex of air at enemy planes. The inventor, Mario Zippermeyer, had tried out smaller versions that could break boards from a distance, so he convinced the military this would work on a larger scale. Building it cost a fortune, and it took forever. When they finally set it up on a bridge over a river, the results were embarrassing. The wind cannon barely made a dent. It couldn't even touch Allied planes flying overhead. After Dunkirk, the British military was in panic mode. Half their weapons and supplies were left rotting on the beaches in France, and nobody knew if Nazi troops were about to cross the Channel. Suddenly, the Home Guard, civilians with barely any equipment, needed whatever could be built, fast. That's where the Smith gun comes in. The whole idea came from William Smith, an engineer at Triangle Limited, the same company making toys on the side. He started throwing out designs for quick-fix weapons, and the Smith gun was the one that actually made it off the drawing board. It's basically a giant metal tube with a wheel on each side, practically built to be towed behind any regular car. In theory, when the time came, you'd tip the whole thing up on one wheel, pop open the center, and suddenly you had a gun ready to fire. The wheel above you worked as a kind of shield for the operator. The weapon itself wasn't exactly terrifying. Maximum range was 500 yards, and if you loaded anti-tank rounds, you were lucky to get 200. And even then, you had to actually hit something. Accuracy was never the Smith gun's strong point. The thing was notorious for missing targets. And to make matters worse, the shells it fired sometimes came with fuses so badly made, commanders started worrying the gun was a bigger danger to their own side than to the enemy. Still, Britain needed something, and the Smith gun fit the bill. It wasn't pretty, but it was quick to produce. Over 10,000 of them got made. Despite all the jokes about its looks and its kill-yourself reputation, some Home Guard units actually got attached to these things. In a time where they were short on options, the Smith gun did what it was supposed to: fill the gap, hold the line, and give civilians at least something to point at the enemy, even if it was mostly for show.